This is Dolynny TV, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the next phase, or should I say next season already. We are into the NHL offseason just like that. The Oilers eliminated, as you see here. The Vegas Golden Knights win the series last night by a 5-2 score in game number 6 to win 4-2 in that series in the second round in the 2023 NHL playoffs. And, well, let me tell you, right off the hop, guess what? We're talking about changing general managers. It's just like that. It moves fast in oil country. And just like that, we are already on our way to figuring out who might assume the general manager role here for the Edmonton Oilers, whether it be this year or following next year. There is now appearing behind the scenes, according to Frank Saravelli, to be a succession plan to Ken Holland in the works. But before we get there and discuss that fully, friends, right now I need you to consider hitting that subscribe button here on the channel. I would love to have you aboard for all things Edmonton Oilers all off season long. I know right now you might not want to talk about the Edmonton Oilers, and I do apologize if that's the case, but today, of course, we get into day one of the off season, and I kind of had a coin flip between whether it would be Erik Karlsson or Ken Holland being the first kind of situation the Oilers would be tackling in the off season. And right away out of the gate, it's pretty much the buzz this morning that there is potential, according to Daily Faceoff, Frank Saravelli, and Jason Greger, that it will be a move made, whether it be this season or next season, from Ken Holland to Steve Staios as the general manager of the Edmonton Oilers. Now, I believe this year, if it's made this offseason, that retains Ken Holland in a president of hockey operations role, promotes Steve Staios to general manager, and then keeps everything else in line with how it is right now. Obviously, the Oilers have had Staios around the past little bit, and secondarily, too, you've got, of course, Keith Gretzky running the Bakersfield Condors and doing a fantastic, unbelievable job doing that. Developing some grade A talent down there on the farm, and of course making sure the Oilers are supplied with the players necessary to be able to keep winning at the level we have over the past several years since he's been in that role. Secondary to that, you have Brad Holland, who is Ken Holland's son, who I think at one point this season we would have been led to believe he was the next in line for the Edmonton Oilers general manager job. However, I think this Steve Staios promotion is kind of a double-edged sword in a way. It's kind of getting away from the go with what you know, make sure you're just keeping it all in the Oilers family, keeping it within the family itself kind of deal. And then secondarily, you're kind of doing that with Steve Staios, right? You're going away from doing that, right? From going father to son and Brad Holland assuming the role, and you're going now instead to former player, just like we did with Craig McTavish, Kevin Lowe, all that back in the day, and you're potentially promoting Steve Staios. So this is not me trying to break news. This is not me trying to get going. This is just the speculation as Frank Saravelli on Daily Faceoff. You can go watch it on Twitter. There's about a 25-second clip for you to watch. Just kind of saying it's happening behind the scenes at current. Not really sure it's going to happen, but it is a possibility at this point. So just kind of looking at that from the lens of, okay, so Ken Holland has been, in terms of any general manager since 1990, potentially one of the most successful general managers, if not the most successful general manager we have had in Edmonton, other than the guys that drafted all those first-round draft picks first overall. But that's a conversation for another day. But of course, right, we are very successful under Ken Holland, and that was what he was brought in to do, right? He was brought in to clean up the mess by Peter Chiarelli and ensure the Edmonton Oilers are the winner they are supposed to be. Cup has not come. We've been deep into the playoffs 2 years in a row, right? Whether you say that second round isn't really that deep, getting to game 6 instead of getting swept, that's a bigger difference. And secondarily, too, look at the rest of the Canadian teams. Look at Toronto even. We got the furthest out of anyone here in the second round this year. So again, in terms of competition within the country, we're still succeeding better than anyone else, which is, hey, at least raise some kind of banner for that and call it a successful year. So that's where we're currently finding ourselves, right? It's no need to get rid of Ken Holland. I think it's just maybe how the Oilers shuffle the deck, but also keep everybody they want, right? And that's kind of what Saravelli mentioned in his clip there, is just basically saying, yeah, you know what? It would be kind of a move to make because you get to keep everybody. As I said, Brad Holland stays in as an assistant GM. Keith Gretzky keeps running the Bakersfield Condors. And you have now Steve Staios in a role, and Ken Holland has a defined single role as president of hockey operations. Sounds like a win to me. And as well, what we're also hearing too, there's some rumblings that there might be some bigger moves made in terms of the Oilers staff, in terms of maybe a goalie coach today is something I read, and in terms of Bob Nicholson potentially being out as well. Kind of just saw those floating around Twitter. Don't know the validity to that other than I think they were just mentioned in passing today because of obviously where we find ourselves being eliminated by the Vegas Golden Knights 4-2 in the second round of the 2023 Stanley Cup playoffs. So again, to say it right, is you're kind of in this double-edged sword situation where going with Steve Staios isn't a bad thing. Going with Steve Staios is a bad thing, but also going with Brad Holland, but not going with Brad Holland, same thing. And Keith Gretzky, kind of the only idea that really kind of avoids that whole mess of the Oilers going with what they know, although Keith Gretzky has been in the organization, and right, we're going with that. But you kind of get the idea with where all this is going for the Edmonton Oilers at this point. Is it's kind of a really nifty situation to actually have what I think the outside world would view as competent management leadership type people within the organization. That's a really nifty thing to have. And obviously too, I don't know what the exit interview schedule looks like. I don't know what kind of how the timelines are going to roll out for that. So with all this, it's just more or less the speculation beginning, and this is version 1 of a discussion I am sure we will have 5, 6, 7 times this offseason, right? It is May 15th. When you get eliminated on May 15th, yeah, we got 2 rounds deep into the playoffs. Guess what? You've still got 2 rounds of the playoffs to go. You got the NHL entry draft, NHL free agency. Then you've got pretty much 2 months of nothing. And then on the last weekend of August, you get into the rookie camps there as they all get geared up and everybody's coming back to Edmonton to skate around and getting ready for the preseason. And then in September 10th, you get into training camp and then away you go. And this all feels really crazy for me to say personally because this is, of course, capping off my first entire playoff year following the Oilers start to finish, no interruptions, and getting this job done. Yes, did I miss 2 games in round 2? Sure, but I still was able to watch them and actually stay up to date. So for what I have put in a complete resume of work this year, it's crazy that now we're right back at square one, kind of where I found myself, except for with this kind of buffer zone, right? If you tuned into Dolynny TV about this time last year, going into the NHL draft, NHL free agency, you would be aware that I was kind of covering things, kind of not really, not taking it really seriously. But here we find ourselves now is I thought I did a full year's work this year. Now from May 15th until June 15th next year, that is going to be a full 13 months of work in which we're going to hopefully change the entire landscape of how business is done here in the Edmonton Oilers community on YouTube. Ambitious? Sure. But that is start number 1 with talking about the general manager situation and rumblings behind the scenes that the Oilers might make a move, might not, but there is still potential that something happens this summer. And of course, too, you know that anytime the Oilers lose, I think coach, general manager are going to be talked about pretty much the next day. Right now, this afternoon, as you're seeing things roll out from various media outlets about the Oilers, is now it's did Jay Woodcroft this? Did Jay Woodcroft that? Right? Whereas this morning, right, Saravelli goes with the big, shiny news that you can throw out there and really get a guy like me talking to basically start the day. And now it's going to roll out kind of the series wrap up, all this. And then probably by next week after the interviews, we're going to actually get into the heavy hitting stuff of the off season, right? Who's getting re-signed? Who's not getting re-signed? You got to watch Twitter all day, every day. And read every article you possibly can on every news site just to have an understanding of what could potentially happen here for the Edmonton Oilers. But before all that, right, if the Oilers are going to make some changes, general manager is going to come first. Secondarily, if that's not really a concern, then maybe not. But we'll find out here along the way, friends. I'm Tyson, this is Dolynny TV. Thank you for letting me eat up some of your Monday afternoon. Again, not a topic I was looking forward to talking to about today. Obviously, the Edmonton Oilers, not the general manager situation. That got me really giddy, but the Edmonton Oilers was not something I was really looking forward to talking to about today. So I will now head outside, crack a Pepsi on the deck and enjoy myself an afternoon in the sun, and then go on down to the bar and watch Game 7 between the Kraken and the Dallas Stars this evening. All right, I've wasted enough of your time. Have yourself a great evening. I hope your plans are somewhat similar. I am up on out of here.